This is the guided brick breaker project. If you are looking at this video, you are hopefully also opening up the brick breaker guided project. Instructions are going to look slightly different from what you see here because I'm recording these videos as we are going. If you are watching this video, you are going to create a video game with me. So step number one, I'm just setting up my settings here. I'm going to have parentheses autocomplete and wrap lines on. This is in the settings portion, third button on the left side here. I'm using the editor Ace Editor and the theme Chrome. So if your code looks a little bit different from mine, that might be the reason why. This doesn't really matter, it's just a setting that I'm using. In order to start a brick breaker project, we are going to start with our constants. I'm going to call this my brick width and my brick height. I'm going to need two constant variables. These are going to represent how big are my bricks going to be. You should go ahead and type these into your canvas as well, or into your CodeHS as well. Keep in mind you will have to make certain changes compared to mine. These changes are listed in the style of section in the assignment. We are currently on part 1, setup. We are going to add a home page to make our game look a certain way. I'm going to set some values for brick width and brick height. I may change these later just as a warning. So currently, I'm going to get the total width of my screen, and I want each brick to be a little dashy thing inside here. I can figure out mathematically how much I want the brick, or what size brick I want. I think I might just go with something like 20 for now. Maybe 50. We'll have our brick height be something smaller. That way the bricks go sideways. They're a little shorter long ways than they will be wide. Oh, I think I mixed that up. No, I didn't. We're good. Let's put something like 20. So for our home page, we just want to make a page that says, welcome to the Brick Breaker game. It has some sort of text on it. It explains what the game is and so on. So I'm going to add a title to my game. To get the title, you're going to add in a text object. I'm going to make a function that adds all this stuff. So I'm going to say my function homepage is going to have all the homepage elements. So I'll say let title equal new text. And I can type whatever I want for this. I'm going to call mine Brick Breaker Game. And I want this to be in the center of the screen. Now, there are a lot of constants we're going to end up using. One of the most useful ones will be this constant called center X. That will be the width of the screen. Make sure that is a capital W for your width. I'm going to use center X all lowercase because I'm lazy. And so that's what I'm going to end up doing here. Center Y, get height divided by 2. This is going to give us the exact center point of our program. And this is where I want to put our title in the home page. So I'm going to do title.setPosition to be at center X and center Y. Then I'm going to add my title to the screen. And let's test our home page out to make sure that's working. If yours looks like mine, we are good to go. You'll notice that it is a little off screen because the center here is the exact center of my screen, and that's where I start typing. If I want my text to be centered, I need to subtract the size of my text. I'm going to take center X and subtract my text, which is title, the width of the title, divided by 2. So instead of starting here, I want to start a little bit to the left based on how long my words are. So this should exactly center my text in the middle of the screen here. I can also change the color of this, so I could say set color. Maybe I want to make my Brick Breaker game a different color. Totally fine. If I want to set up a background color, I'm just going to do something like set background color, and I can change the entire background color to whatever I'd like. A little hard to read there, so I'm going to make this white and my background teal. You choose your own colors as well. Here's our Brick Breaker game. We're going to add a start button to this. So I'm going to say let start button equal, and I want a rectangle for my start button. I'm going to say that's going to be a new rectangle of whatever size I want. Let's test out some sizes. We're going to put that start button again in the middle. So write start button dot set position, center X and center Y. Then let's add that start button to the page so we can actually see it. Again, same issue where we are in the exact center. And I have this very large rectangle. I'm going to make that a little smaller. Let's say a 100 by 50. That's a good size button in my opinion. I want to move that to the left a little bit and then a little bit down so that my button isn't touching my title. To change that, we're going to do the same thing we did above. We're going to take center X and we're going to subtract half the button's width. So we take our start button, find its width using get width, and divide that by 2. Now it's perfectly centered. If I want to move it down, I can just take center Y, and I'm going to subtract or add actually. Moving down in JavaScript is backwards, so if I want to move my button down, I'm going to add some numbers until it's in a good spot. That's pretty okay with me. I'm going to set the color now to be something different. I'm going to make this, let's say, a lime green button. And I want my start button to have a little border, so I'll say set border color to white to try and unify all the stuff that I have. My border's a little thin, so I'm going to add set start button, set border width. This will change how thick I want my border to be. 2 will be a little bit thicker. I'm going to go with 3. Four is a little thick. Let's go with 3. All right. And I'm going to add a text to my button so it tells them what that button is for. Here's my start text. I'm going to say that is a new text object like we did before, and it's going to be the word start. Start text. I can set its position. I'm going to set its position to be exactly the same as my start button for now. Let me copy and paste that since I want them on top of each other. If it doesn't work right now, we will move it, not a problem. And then let's add that start text. So you notice that my start button is a little bit off because they're at the exact same point here. And if I want to know, okay, where do I have to move both of these? I'm going to turn on the debug mode. So for my start button, I'm going to set debug equals true. And I'm going to do the same thing for my start text. Whenever I'm having trouble moving things, I write the debug option and I set that to be true. Here's my start button. Now you'll notice that red dot, these two are on the same spots and so they share that red dot. That shows me where's the position. For my start button here, I want to move it down. So I'm going to take center Y, I'm going to add a little bit more to that. Once they are no longer overlapped, you can really see where those 2 red dots are. The top one is for my rectangle, the bottom one is for my start button. I'm going to move that down even further. Let's go with 55. That's probably a good amount. And then looking at that red dot again, I want to scoot it more to the right. If I want to move something to the right, I'm just going to take my X position and add numbers until it is moved over far enough. Oops, that was a little too far. Let's try 20. That looks fairly centered to me. And you can see these 2 little dots, those are the positions of these 2 objects, but now they seem to be on top of each other. That looks pretty centered. I can turn off the debug mode by turning that to false. And so all those red lines disappear. I have my start button. I think just to unify all the colors, I'm going to make my start text also set color to be white. So my text is white as well. This is the start of my brick breaker game. What I want to do is when I click the start button, all of this will disappear and my bricks will appear. So now that we have our home page, we no longer need this function. I'm going to click the little arrow here next to the number 8 to just hide all that code. It'll make things a little easier for me to scroll around with. You don't have to do that, but that'll make my life a little bit easier. We have our home page set up. What we want to do is have a function for all the mouse clicking. So we'll say mouse clicks is my function. And then inside here, keep in mind anything that wants to be our mouse function, you must put the word mouse. We're going to make this function happen on mouse click method. This is just a setup to making sure that anything I want to do with my mouse should happen with this mouse click method. If I'm clicking at all, it's going to run this function I wrote on line 33. My job is I want to click the start button and then start the game. So I need to know where is my mouse. Whenever we have a mouse function, I recommend you write these. Let mouse x equal mouse.getx. Let mouse y equal mouse.getY. Now that I know where my mouse is, I can see what am I clicking on. To see that, I'm going to use the getElementAt function. Let click on is the thing I'm clicking on. It could be the start button, it could be the text, it could be something else. So if I happen to be clicking on the element, I want to see what am I clicking on. It'll be the thing at my mouse's position. I'm going to use getElementAt to grab the thing on the screen, and I want to grab the thing at my mouse's X and Y position. If click on happens to be the start button, and keep in mind my start button was hidden here in the home page. If we look around, JavaScript has no way of knowing what that start button is because I hid it in the home page. For that reason, I want to move these start buttons outside of this section. We are going to make a bunch of global variables. All my global variables go outside here. So you may have noticed I made a couple of global variables already. Up here, these are all constants. These remain the same, and so we use const. My start button is going to stay the same as well. I could use const, but I'm actually going to use let because it'll be a little bit easier for objects. Objects just work a little better as lets, so let's use that for now. I'm going to move anything that I want to use. So for example, let start button. I'm going to write that now as a global variable. You can put a semicolon at the end, but you don't have to. We did talk about that in the first week of JavaScript. The other thing I need to do is delete the let from line 18, going all the way down to the start button here. Now what this has done is it says make a global variable. There is a variable called start button. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the start button looks like until I run the home page. So when I start making my home page, like in line 33, which is defined in line 10 through 31, then I know what a start button is. Until then, a start button is basically just a blank spot. We're going to do the same thing with the start text because you could accidentally hit the text called start, and we want that to still work. Same thing down here, get rid of the let. And once again, I'm going to click that little arrow or little triangle next to the number 11 by my function, just to hide all that code. Makes my life a little bit easier to work with. We're going back to the function mouse clicks. We have something we have clicked on, and if we click on the start button, or if we click on the start text, either way, whichever one we click on, I want the game to begin. The game is going to begin if I remove everything off the screen. So I'm going to write remove all to remove everything off the screen. Save this real quick, run your code, and let's make sure that works. If I click anywhere, I'm currently clicking with my mouse and nothing's working. If I click on the start button, that text should now disappear, and now we're ready to begin the game. I think what I'm going to do is I'm also going to change the background color to make it look like it's on a different page. So I'm going to remove all, and then I'm going to write set background color. And I'm going to choose a new color this time, maybe a peach or something. Again, if I click that start button, remove all, then it doesn't look like peach is valid. Let's try white. There we go. And now I go to a white screen. Seems a little bright after that teal, so I'm going to go to black maybe. That looks pretty nice. We could do like a dark gray. There are a lot of good options here. If there's a specific color you want, go ahead and look up in a new page, HTML color picker. And you can choose whatever color your heart desires. Use the sliding scale here, copy this hex code. So let's say I did want to use this sort of light yellow cream, and copy this hex code here. And I'm going to use that instead of a name. So I could get sort of a peachy or a mango-ish color. I think I will go with dark gray, however. I did like that. All right, my background is here, and now what I want to do is I want to start the game. So I'm going to add another function down here. I'm going to say start game. Start game is a brand new function that I still have to write, and I'm going to do that down below. I'm going to again hide this little function using the triangle next to the line 36. Again, this makes my life a little easier. I'm going to make a new start game function. Now the Brick Breaker game, if you have not looked at the example, looks like such on Cool Math Games. Similarly, they have sort of a home screen here. They have a play button. And then they have their bricks created. I want to make a bunch of rectangles, a ball, and a paddle. That is my first goal for this whole setup. So I need to draw a bunch of those bricks. I got ahead of myself and I started drawing these constants called brick width and brick height. So we're going to use those to make some rectangles. What I want to do is make a bunch of rectangles. So let's start with a single one. Let a brick be, oh, it's not a new brick, but this is going to be a rectangle. We're calling it a brick, but it is truly a rectangle. And I'm going to use my brick width and my brick height. I'm just going to add that directly to my screen because I want to see if it works. Now if I go to output and run, when I click the start button, I have my first brick at the top here, and you'll notice it's very, very set against this sort of back area. I want to give myself a little bit of space, so I need to change its position. I'm going to say brick.setPosition, and that position is going to be something specific. I'm going to write two variables in here, x and y, and I'm going to create those at the start of my game. Let x be, let's say 5, let y be 5 as well. Now when I click start, you'll notice I have a little bit of space to the left and to the top of my bricks here. That just makes sure that they're not stuck up against the wall and I can see, okay, these bricks are each different things. I want to make more than one brick, however. I want to make them next to one another. I want to make bricks going all the way across the screen. So to make that happen, I'm going to put all of this brick code here, all of this right here, into a new loop. So I'm going to say for, and this is how many bricks I have in a row. So let's say, yeah. Let's call this column. So we're starting on column 1 here. This is my first column where a brick is going. I can decide how many bricks I want to have. So I'm saying starting from 1, I'm going to put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe I'll put down 5 bricks in each row. And then I'm going to put all this brick code inside these curly brackets. If I run that code and then I click start, you'll notice we still only have 1 brick. The issue is they are all on top of each other. They are all on this position X and Y. What I want to do is, after I lay down my first brick, I want to change the values of X and Y. I want X to be equal to its old value plus a certain amount. That certain amount is going to be the entire brick length, so they're not overlapping. So I'm going to write brick width plus a small number that offset in between. Now if I click start, you'll see I have 5 bricks going across the screen. It looks like I can fit maybe 2 more, so I'll say my column is going to go all the way up to 7 instead. And now I have bricks going all the way across the screen. Got a little bit of space here. I can always change those numbers if desired. For example, I can give myself 6 pixels between each brick. 7. 6 look a little bit better in my opinion. That looks pretty good. That looks fairly even. Here are all my bricks across, and I've made my first row of bricks. If you want to change their position, of course, you can do something like brick.setColor. Maybe I'll set these to be green. Here I have all my green bricks going across the screen. And this is just for the first column. What I want to do is I also want to make a bunch of rows of bricks. Maybe I want to have 2 or 3 rows of these different things. So I can go ahead and make another for loop and keep that going. You should change the color of your bricks, make them look like something pretty. I don't know what a good option would be, but choose some sort of color that makes you happy. So we can copy and paste this, or I'm going to use something a little bit fancy. I'm going to make another for loop. After I make one row of these bricks, I want to make another row. So I'm going to say for each row, this is my first row of bricks. Let's say I want to make a total of 4 rows. Then I would write my for loop just like this. I'm saying, okay, my first row of bricks is going to be called 1. That's this entire red line here. Then I'm going to make one below, then another, so I have 4 total rows. What I want to do is at the end of a row, this for loop here highlighted makes a single row. At the end of a row, I want to make sure I go back to the beginning, so my x goes back to 5, because I'm going to lay bricks down starting from the left side. And then I want to increase my y value, so y is going to be y plus some small number. Let's put we want the brick height so they don't overlap, and then let's add another 6 or something. When I click start now, here are my bricks all laid out. Now you may want your bricks in a different pattern of colors. So if you want to make a pattern of colors, instead of using the color red here, or whatever color we chose, I'm going to make a color variable. So I'm going to say let color equal, for example, we start with black. So now all my bricks are black. Let's say that I want the rows to change color. Here is where I'm changing which row I'm on. This would go down to the next row. So then I'm going to change my color variable to be a different color. If I do that, then you'll see I have 1 black row and 3 green rows. If I want to alternate these colors, then I would use an if statement instead. Down here, if I add an if statement, if I am on an odd row, so if row modulus 2 is odd, so I put a 1 there, this would be for all odd rows. Odd rows, the color is going to be red. Otherwise, if I'm on an even row, my color is going to be black. Let's run that code. If I click start, now I have alternating colors of red and black bricks. To finish up our setup, we're going to need a ball and a paddle. This is just the start of our game here. So now we're going to add in a ball and paddle. I will tell you right now, the ball and paddle are going to move, and so it's going to be a little bit easier, just for everyone, if we add those outside. So before the start game here, I'm going to say let ball and let paddle. The ball is going to be the circle bouncing around. The paddle is going to be what we will move eventually. After we make all the bricks, we are now going to add our ball and paddle. So we already have the let up there. I'm going to write ball is equal to a new circle with some sort of radius that you choose. And the paddle is going to be a new rectangle of some sort of size. Let's say it'll be 40, 10. For both of these, let's add them in. So we're going to say add ball and add paddle. When I click start here, you can see right now my ball and paddle are actually in the upper left corner, so let's move those down. I want those sort of at the bottom of the screen. First my ball, so my ball.set position. I want it all the way down in the center, so I'm going to use center X. And for my Y, I can use the get height. That'll be somewhere at the bottom. Same for my paddle. Yes, they will be overlapping a little bit, so we'll take a look here. Center X, comma, get height. Now you can see they are a little bit off screen, so I want my ball to be a little higher. And we can choose any position that we'd like. Let's say I want this up at 40. Now I don't really have enough room for the paddle, so I actually need that ball to be a lot higher. Let's say 100. Here's our ball. Let's do the same thing for our paddle. If we do minus 100, again, you can see my paddle is kind of overlapping with the ball. And noticing my ball is a little bit big, so I think I'll bring that down to 15. That's a better size ball. I want my paddle to be a lot wider. That's looking pretty good. For my paddle, again, we have this sort of center position. So we're going to take center x minus half the paddle's width. So paddle dot get width divided by 2. There's our paddle, and again, it's still overlapping with that ball. So I want to move that down. Down is going to be increasing in y, so I want to subtract less. Instead of subtracting 100, subtract something like 60. All right. And normally the ball starts on the paddle, so I just kind of have to move that ball so that it is in a good spot. Let's try 50. Too far down. And that looks perfect. Here's my ball, here's my paddle. Noticing my paddle might want to be a little bit wider compared to that ball. Let's try 75. I like that. So there is the code that I have for my ball and paddle. We have the bricks, and most importantly, we have the start to our game. We have Brick Breaker Game. When we click the start button, that's when our game actually appears. Nothing else is going to happen for now because we are not done. Move to your next part 2 video. Keep in mind in the assignment, you need to make sure your home page looks different and your bricks and or background colors should be different. You should use a different pattern of bricks or just change each brick's color. You decide.